The xenobotany research station on Vorcath Prime hummed with quiet efficiency as Arlen catalogued another specimen of bioluminescent moss. The planet's twin moons cast silver shadows through the observation dome, and the distant calls of native fauna created an alien symphony that had become oddly comforting over the past 6 months. She was alone tonight. Her team had returned to the orbital platform for resupply, leaving her to maintain the automated systems and continue her work. Solitude never bothered Arlen. In fact, she preferred it. Out here among the strange flora and careful documentation, she could think clearly without the constant chatter of concerned colleagues asking if she was okay after the incident on her last assignment. The growl came from behind her. Low and rumbling, Arlen's hand instinctively moved to the plasma torch on her belt, standard protocol on a world where the food chain hadn't yet learned to fear humans. She turned slowly, her heart rate elevated but controlled. The station's sensors should have detected any large predator within 100 meters. What she saw made her pause. A small creature, no larger than a terrier, stood in the doorway of the greenhouse section. Its 6 legs were spread wide in what might have been an intimidating stance if the animal weren't so obviously young. Crystalline fur caught the moonlight, making it shimmer like a living geode. Large amber eyes stared at her with a mixture of fear and determination. It growled again, a tiny warbling sound that broke halfway through. Arlen felt the tension drain from her shoulders. "Well, you're certainly fierce," she said softly, crouching to make herself less threatening. "How did you get in here, little one?" The creature, a Vorcath hexapod, she realized, probably a cub separated from its pack, attempted another growl. This time it added a small hop forward as if to emphasize its dangerous nature. The effect was almost comically unthreatening. "Tivik," Arlen murmured, remembering the Vorcathi word her xenolinguist colleague had taught her. It meant small thunder or little storm. The name felt appropriate. Tivik the cub growled once more, but his stance was faltering. His crystalline fur, which should have been standing on end in aggressive display, was matted and dull. One of his hind legs bore an obvious injury, a deep gash that looked infected. The story became clear. This wasn't an attack. This was a desperate creature trying to be brave in a terrifying situation. "Oh, Tivik," Arlen said, her voice catching. "You're hurt, aren't you? And you're trying so hard to be scary." She knew the protocol. Native fauna were to be observed, not interfered with. The Galactic Council's prime directive for research stations was explicit: maintain distance, document behavior, but never intervene in natural processes. Her supervisor, a Centaurian named Velkosh, had been particularly insistent after humans had gained a reputation for inappropriate emotional attachment to alien species. But as she looked at this small creature, injured and alone, attempting to muster courage through sheer force of will, Arlen felt something shift inside her. This was what her colleagues never understood about humans. It wasn't weakness that made them intervene. It was recognizing strength in the most vulnerable places. "The council can file their complaints later," she muttered, slowly extending her hand. "Let's take a look at that leg." Tivik growled again, but it was half-hearted. His amber eyes tracked her movements with obvious fear, but he didn't flee. Perhaps he understood, in whatever way young creatures understand these things, that he was out of options. Arlen spent the next hour in careful work. She moved slowly, speaking in low, calm tones as she cleaned and treated the wound with veterinary supplies from the station's emergency kit. Tivik flinched and whimpered but never bit or scratched. When she offered him a protein bar, not ideal nutrition for a Vorcathi but better than nothing, he devoured it desperately. "Your pack left you behind, didn't they?" Arlen said as she applied the final bandage. "Or maybe you wandered off and got lost. Either way, you ended up here, trying to be brave all by yourself." She understood that feeling better than she cared to admit. The station's long-range scanner had picked up Vorcathi pack movements about 2 kilometers north. At dawn, she would take Tivik back to them, using the rover if his injury made walking impossible. Until then, she fashioned a bed from thermal blankets in the corner of the lab. Tivik curled up immediately, his crystalline fur beginning to regain some of its luster. Before sleep claimed him, he looked at Arlen with those enormous amber eyes and made one more sound. Not a growl this time, but a soft trilling chirp. "You're welcome," Arlen replied, returning to her workstation. As she filed her report, meticulously documenting the unavoidable medical intervention with juvenile fauna, she couldn't help but smile. Let the Galactic Council debate the ethics. Let Velkosh write another stern memo about human emotionalism and breach of protocol. The truth was simpler than they wanted to acknowledge. Humans had explored the stars not because they were the strongest or the smartest, but because they had never learned to ignore courage when they saw it, no matter how small the package it came in. Outside, the twin moons continued their silent dance across the sky. In the corner of the lab, a tiny hexapod cub dreamed whatever dreams small, brave creatures dream. And at her console, Arlen felt something she hadn't felt in months. A reminder of why she'd chosen this life among the stars in the first place. Sometimes, the greatest strength wasn't in the roar itself, but in the decision to roar at all. By morning, she would return Tivik to his pack. But for tonight, courage, small, imperfect, and utterly sincere, had found sanctuary in the heart of a human who understood what it meant to be afraid and keep going anyway. That, more than any technology or weapon, was what made humanity truly formidable among the stars.